It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. And there we have it. With the turn of the clock, it becomes a Thursday. Gary, what's happening?
Not much. Got to turn on the microphone.
Yeah.
A couple of things that I was thinking yesterday. First off, I swear, it's almost every day Fox News has a headline that says, this happened, causes social media outrage.
Yeah.
I'm like, everything causes social media outrage. I mean, it's like...
Right, yeah. What doesn't?
It's like...
I had soup this morning. Wait for it.
Soup! And then the other thing is I saw that the band Green Day is I don't know where they are. I don't even know where they are right now.
On an oldies cruise?
But they changed the lyrics of one of their songs, to insult Vance. J.D. Vance.
Wow.
And then the lead singer Billy Joe Armstrong asked the crowd, "Don't you want Elon Musk to shut the blank up?" And it was in Australia. So when I saw that story yesterday, I went, and people covered it, but nobody cares. Rock bands are not relevant when it comes to politics anymore at all.
No, because you're right. It's changed drastically. It used to be back in the day, long before, the computer age. People looked to other people to get opinions in terms of, any kind of social comment, including singers. Bob Dylan made a career on it. A lot of people did. And then Green Day comes along. And what's interesting here is that there seems to be this new round of activity where they think they're relevant in this arena. And I don't know what makes them think that, unless they're just, again, it's their radicalism that kind of drives them. They really don't know how to keep it under control.
Well, I think, you just wonder whether they sit back and they're furious because they think they're still relevant to young kids,
right.
And young kids are moving drastically towards the Republican Party.
Yeah.
Which we always said, look, there's always going to be an ebb and flow.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at, and we had said this a long time ago with Rage Against the Machine,
mm-hmm.
It's like you're raging for the machine now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when you're socialist Marxist, you are, and you're railing, your philosophy. You are actually talking about you're part of the machine.
Right.
You don't have rage against the machine. You're raging for the machine, mm-hmm. if you're a Marxist.
Right.
And we just said it's so stupid because nobody figures that out. And then when you look at conservative ideology versus liberal ideology, which is everybody must stand in line here, the identity politics. I've been around long enough where I remember the 60s. Yes, I actually remember the 60s.
Mm.
A lot of people my age were in the 60s. They just don't remember it.
Right.
And I can remember when people would say, I'm a liberal because I don't trust government. I'm a liberal because I don't wish to conform.
Mm-hmm.
And now, when you look at what has been, over the last, 20 years, all the rock bands became part of the machine and were stressing conformity.
Yeah.
And identity politics.
Right.
Is there any band that's championing a band? I'm talking about rock band, not like Lady Gaga, because is Lady Gaga for the radical transgender movement?
I just assume so.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know. I just assume They all are, right?
Yeah, because it's a natural thing that young people will eventually revolt against somebody telling them they need to conform, that everything is about conformity, that you're in this particular group, therefore you need to act that way.
Right.
Young people, I think, were bullied into that over the last few years. I think it's natural for this revolt to happen.
Yeah.
And when you look at their attraction to Trump, if anybody, whether you agree with him or not, if anybody is an individual and autonomous and doesn't conform and doesn't wish to conform, that would be Trump.
And amazingly, ironically, he's been sober all his life.
He remembers the 60s.
Well, I saw the article where, and good for him, Stephen Stills says that he's getting his original personality back because he's been sober now for 3 years, and I think that's a good thing. That's great. I hope he's healthy. He's also surprised to learn that he was once a hippie. And, you think about these people, Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young. They built, a career on the message rock, right?
Oh, yeah.
Everything had to be. And then as they all kind of, went their own separate ways, especially Neil Young, there's still that message out there. So I get it why anyone that's still around from that age is still doing it. Green Day, I don't get at all. Let's be clear. They had an album called Dookie. How seriously are you going to take an artist that has an album called Dookie? It's and the thing too was they were attempting to convince people they were punk rock. I was careful how I phrased that. Because they're not punk rock, but, they kind of wanted to be. They were the wannabe, the punk retro thing came around about the time they were breaking, right? So, okay, fine. They had lots of bands.
Punk?
Pop with a slight punk lean, that kind of thing. But they sold a lot of albums.
Yeah. It was a good album.
And, so but the thing is that you're still you're a pop band. And if you're going to try and convince people you're punk, well, being pro big government
yes, exactly.
is the last thing you want to do. You're not, look, I didn't buy into the whole punk thing. It was an influence that kind of came through, but they, took it a little further, and it's okay, that's fine. Because it created a blend of of genres, and they sold tons of records. What the hell do I know about it? You know what I mean? But my advice would be, if you're wanting to keep your street cred, you don't go all big government.
Well, out of the Sex Pistols, didn't Johnny Rotten sort of become really live punk because he became more I wasn't a fan of the band at all, but as you know, he became more conservative.
Right.
And so if you become more conservative, you believe in autonomy of the individual. The individual is key. And it was always with punk that the message should be, you do whatever you want to do. And whatever you want to do is okay, right?
Right.
As long as you're not interfering with anyone else. I mean, the punk message was actually not that radical, except for, can I stick another needle in my arm?
Yeah.
Which then, again, I'm autonomous and I'm an individual, and I'm going to shoot heroin like everybody else.
Yeah.
Because I fit this genre. I'll never forget, what was it, Behind the Music?
Yeah, right.
Where Billy Joe Armstrong, remember when he was complaining that, then they said we weren't punk because we were selling records. Well, we're looking for success. Oh, you're a capitalist then? Is it?
Well, it's. I'm saying you weren't punk because you weren't punk.
So
It has nothing to do with the fact that you got popular. It's just that you got popular because you weren't punk. You weren't. You were pop. Leiden, by the way, Johnny Rotten says this a couple of weeks ago. Says Taylor Swift is incredibly dull. And he, quote, doesn't like Lady Gaga as a human being. There you go. That's what we're looking for.
But it's when I just had that thought when I saw the headline in Fox News. I'm like, that didn't even cause a social media outrage, and everything causes. It's like nobody cares. You're not relevant anymore. Rock isn't relevant anymore. Pop music isn't relevant anymore when it comes to the political arena.
Well,
I mean, does anybody care what John Cougar? Is he still Mellencamp? Did he change his name or something else again?
I think he dropped Cougar in like '78. But yeah, what do I know?
Does anybody?
Johnny Cougar.
Does anybody care what he thinks anymore?
No.
I mean, and my point is, I never did.
Well,
but society seemed to.
He broke down and went at his own audience at a live show.
I remember that. Yes,
during the show. It's and the earlier point is that back in the day there was no avenue for people to issue their own opinion. I mean, I guess at a gathering or a march or a protest or something like that, but not as a collective public globally like we're doing right now on social media. The point being is that when you blend in, Armstrong or anybody else making a comment, a social comment about whatever, into the other, several billion opinions, it kind of, again, loses a lot of steam. It doesn't have the same weight as it did before. Because, celebrity says something, all right, it makes the news. Yeah, but does anybody care? Well, because here's the other problem is that you're counting essentially on the media, if you're a celebrity, to carry that opinion and report what you said. And now the people question the media because they're not the media anymore. We are. So the media is falling apart. Media, you're looking at cable news companies disintegrating because their audience is gone. So you're not relevant in many, many ways, except to play your music for your fans that have been around for a long time. That's kind of the thing. You and I, to be clear, are not the shut up and sing people.
No. We want everybody
say what you want to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't care if you want to get up there and never sing again, and all you want to do is sell tickets to your opinion. Right. I mean, good luck with that. But if that's what you want to do, great, go do it. Yeah. But it's again, if you're trying to come off as punk, pro-big government isn't the road you need to be on.
What a day it was yesterday. Every day is what a day it was yesterday.
I mean, yeah. Seriously.
We'll get to some of the comments made with the mayors and sanctuary cities yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
What else is going on?
The tariffs, what's going to move, what isn't going to move, what the response was. How did the car companies actually get a 30-day exemption?
Well, it's going to be a roller coaster because the administration. This is what I see. I mean, I think it's pretty clear. They say, okay, here's what we're going to do tomorrow, and then they get so many phone calls and they see the stock market. Okay, we got to do something to do it. So they don't even know what type of reaction the tariffs are going to have. Because they say one thing one day and then 24 hours later, okay, there's a reprieve. Why did they get the reprieve? Well, the White House even said it because they were getting calls from the car companies. Well, and plus that story went viral about the one truck that went up $20,000 in one day.
Right. Yeah.
And it
Yeah,
was like,
the dealership passing it along
Yeah.
to the consumer, basically.
right. And it was like, okay, that's and so I mean, they're just they're throwing they're throwing darts at a wall
Well-
and trying to figure out exemption here, exemption there. This is only temporary. And then you had 2 days ago Lutnick coming out and saying, well, we think we have a deal where both of us would compromise, and that didn't come to fruition.
Here's the headline from CNBC. Trump tariffs. White House reportedly weighs agricultural exemptions for Mexico and Canada.
Yeah, I mean,
That came across in the evening about, I don't know, several hours ago, about 4 or 5 hours ago.
And by the way, I'm fine if as we said early on, economics is going to decide all of this, and you have right now an economy that they're not sure where it's going. We could be in negative growth right now,
Right.
and the administration, by doing all this, at least is admitting what we always stated, and the one thing that we said, don't be honest about it. Let the American public know, and they are by having all these exemptions. They're showing, it's putting because they vehemently defend it doesn't cause inflation, and then they give all these exemptions because they know it will increase prices, and therefore the American consumer will do it.
Right.
That's what I don't want. Conservatives and Republicans don't need to ever not be honest.
Right, yeah.
And
Right.
they were, but now they're being honest by doing all this. But the fact is, they throw the tariffs on, and then the next day, well, okay, we got to take it off because, okay, it's having much more of a negative effect. And so how long will this go on for? We'll talk more about it. 866-90-RED-I.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. It's not always easy to spring back from the harsh days of winter to warmer months ahead. From de-icing chemicals to hidden debris underneath snow and ice, winter conditions can do serious damage to your truck. Here's a must-do maintenance check to help you minimize downtime and stay rolling. Make sure your fluids are at proper levels ahead of spring. Fluid is to trucks what blood is to the human body. Low fluid can be just as harmful as no fluid, and the damage this will cause to your truck is unavoidable. Pay attention to your engine oil, coolant levels, power steering fluid, transmission fluid, brake fluid, and differential fluid.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Some interesting things going on yesterday. The hearing with the sanctuary city mayors. Here's Representative Donalds.
Mayor Wu, in the city of Boston, how much did you spend?
We don't ask about immigration status and delivering city
You don't
services,
ask
so
about
we
how
don't
much
have
money
that
the city of Boston has spent on illegal immigration?
We
Are
don't
you out of your
distinguish
mind?
between immigration status.
Do you
as
manage
part
your
of our
budget
city
or not,
policies.
Mayor Wu?
That is how we keep
Mayor
our city
Wu, do
safe.
you manage
we
your
have
budget or
the
not?
numbers to prove it. I manage my budget. I have a AAA bond rating dating back 10 years.
So to the city of Boston,
budget.
just understand that your mayor does not care how much of your resources she has spent on people who are not citizens
The city
of
of Boston
the city of
is
Boston.
sick of having
I'm reclaiming
people
my
outside
time.
Boston
Mr.
telling
Bear,
us what
Mr.
we
Bear, I have
need.
a question for you because
Yeah. Wow.
Look, the people of Boston, the majority voted for her. They want illegal immigrants to be on the streets. They want criminals to be on the streets. The majority of voters do.
I don't see
Otherwise, they
any local
wouldn't vote
political
that way.
pressure
Right.
on her.
Right. She actually has a point.
Yeah.
Our people want this.
Yeah.
Now, they may be breaking the law.
Right.
And that's where the federal government should come in. But understand, let's stop saying that basically she's not acting in the best interest of what the people of Boston want. People of Boston want illegal immigrant criminals on the street.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. We'll have more audio coming up a little bit later about the Sanctuary City hearings yesterday. But the one thing I was thinking of, if they break the law, the federal government has to go after these people who break the law. If a politician breaks federal law, fine. But if they don't break federal law, let them run their city and state into the ground. That's federalism. If California, if Massachusetts, if their goal is to become a third world state, let them do it. But the federal government role should be, if they're breaking federal law, arrest them. But the time for talk is ending. If they're breaking the law, arrest them.
Mm-hmm.
If they're not, let them run their city and state right to hell.
Yep. Don't use, and look, don't use federal money to do it, and don't allow them to break the law to do it.
Right.
But otherwise, let them do what they're going to do.
Yeah.
I mean, if they get the political support, what do you do?
Yeah. You look at it when they were doing the focus groups yesterday during or 2 days ago during the president's. Boy, sometimes it's just a little bit strange when you work overnights because you think it's yesterday and it was actually technically 2 days ago.
Mm.
But when the president was giving his speech to the joint session of Congress, when he talked about, there being just two sexes, you could see it. Independents and Republicans loved it. Mm-hmm. If you look down at Democrats, boom.
Right.
Democrats, but it's not just because we've heard this before. Well, the representatives don't represent the people. Yeah, they do. When you saw that yesterday, the insanity of the radical transgender movement, the majority of Democrats support.
Well,
the Democrat
where's the
voters
outrage
support.
Of all the votes that have, and it's been several votes that have taken place, where across the board the Democrats vote for the transgender movement,
right? And
rank and file, there's no outrage. You have very few on the left, very few, and you know who they are because they're the ones actually talked about that are high-profile individuals on the left that are speaking out against it. But the rank-and-file voter has said nothing collectively.
You've had, out of everyone, every Democrat in the House and the Senate, you had two congresspeople vote not to allow men in women's private areas.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, every single other Democrat, including every member of the Senate, but you can actually make the case on that issue that the Senate's more radical than the House. Understand, and this is why you cannot stop. You cannot stop. This is something you can't sit there and say, we've won, now we can relax. Because you saw what happened when Republicans did that over the last, 10 years. Mm-hmm. You see the insane things that Democrats try to push through. I mean, absolutely insane. And that was really the talk yesterday. We'll get back to everything of the Sanctuary City stuff here in a little bit. But that was really the narrative yesterday. What do Democrats stand for? And they'll throw out the generic thing. We stand for people. We stand for higher education. Yeah, but what do you actually do when you get in power? Does it work? Is the education system better because you wish to make it a monopoly where there is no competition? Has that succeeded? When you look at defund the police, did that work? When you look at sanctuary cities policies, when you look at like Chicago, are the people happy with it? Well, the mayor has 6.6% favorability rating, but then again, those same people that give him the 6.6 and gave Lori Lightfoot, like 20%, still will vote for another Democrat who will do the exact same thing. And so they'll sit there and they'll actually feel the result of it. They're furious about it, and then they'll say, well, who's the next person in line to do the exact same thing?
When we were going over the numbers for Mayor Brandon, I asked the question, well, who's the next person? Because it's not going to be somebody more moderate. It has to be somebody more radical. Well, what do you think the results are going to be? And people will, that person will have a 3.3 rating. I don't know if they get into the negative ratings below zero. But this is by design, because you can't go in and vote for a moderate. You can't do that. You know?
And so you look at it yesterday, and it's a great point, because that was when you see, the CBS poll was it Bill Kristol? By the way, Bill Kristol got blasted yesterday. There was outrage on social media. He got blasted for his transgender stuff, and then he was just talking about how it was horrible. And then he wrote it yesterday morning after the polls already had come out, saying, oh, this didn't go well. The American public isn't going to view what Trump did as good whatsoever. And it was like every response was the CBS polling. Bill, are you paying attention? Did you even watch it?
Right.
Are you in this world? What drugs are you doing? I mean, it's complete. It's just complete denial and delusion, delusional thought. And I really think that it came to a head with the realization after the president's speech about it, because even you had intellectually honest Democrats, the very few of them going, oh, my gosh, the kid has cancer. What's and Nicole Wallace and what's her name?
Rachel Maddow.
They got blasted yesterday, for their comments on it. I mean, there's nothing. There's not if Trump is, forget about it, it's not even just Trump. If the Republicans are behind anything, they can't be for it.
Right. Yeah.
Doesn't matter. And so they just take the most radical positions. By the way, this is not as a conservative Republican Party as a Republican Party was 20 years ago.
Right.
We hope it eventually is. There are people in there, for example, the president with Doge, who wants drastic cuts. I mean, that's as conservative as you can get.
Yeah.
As we've said before, Donald Trump can, he can, go up and down when it comes to, oh, that's really conservative. Okay, that's not as conservative. That's really conservative. That's not conservative. But other than that, we look at it, and now the question is, I was thinking about this yesterday, it's very, very quiet, isn't it, in the House and Senate when it comes to what kind of bill they're going to come up with, because the consensus I've seen is, well, Doge can do whatever they want, but Congress doesn't plan on cutting. And really, do the Republicans really plan on cutting? And even with when they put in the framework $800 billion in cuts, they can't identify what they are. You and I've asked, why can't the Republicans, why didn't they day one get every single vote to say the Inflation Reduction Act is done today? They had and I love this one, it was all over social media, the secret meeting between the senators and Elon Musk. Well, what's secret? Everybody knew about it.
Right.
They were waiting for Elon Musk to come out, and it's where, okay, well, what we need to do is we need to, as Congress, because, and I believe, maybe they were taking it from the Wall Street Journal the other day that said, or was it the Wall Street Journal? Maybe it was National Review, that said, well, you can stop these court things right now. Just have the House and Senate come out and go, no, we endorse what's going on with Doge. And you put it in official legislation. We agree with it. That takes away anything, because then Congress has approved it.
Right.
And you can do that today. Well, then do it. What's the question? Do it.
Right.
On cutting, Ron Paul made a video after the House did it, saying they're not cutting at all. Because that's the problem. When you promote something and you promote something and you promote something, and we said it always goes back to Congress. Are they going to do the same thing? Or are you going to cut $1 trillion there and add $1 trillion here?
Right.
But that's where you get that in politics. That's where you get in trouble, where you promise the world, and you
overpromise, underdeliver.
And we got a couple of our listeners said that on email.
Yeah.
Always underpromise and overdeliver.
Right.
Which is a great
Well,
point.
all you need to do is promise to look for things to cut every single day. This is what we're going to do. We're going to find things. We're going to bring them to the public. We're going to make sure everybody knows about what we're doing, and we're going to look to cut every single dime we can. That's all you have to do. You don't have to put a number to it. Now, when you're talking about, spending $80 million on transgender mice, put a number to it.
Did you see CNN? It's not that. It was only 3, and then they got fact checked,
right?
And they came back and said, well, but he didn't explain it fully. There's context here. It was not to figure out whether mice is transgender, is to figure out if mice can be transgender, how that relates to human beings. Well, we knew that.
Right, yeah.
Figured that one out already.
Yeah.
We get it. But they said they were in error.
Right.
On it. It was just like, wow.
Yeah. Well, again, because what are they doing? They're not getting the facts and reporting them, correcting, doing the fact checking. They're fighting. They jump into the fight without knowing the facts. This is why nobody's watching you, CNN. This is why nobody cares. This is why we're the media now. It's interesting watching all this, go down with these television media companies, news companies. I always wondered about the business model. How do you pay all these high-profile individuals all this money if you don't have an audience? Fox News has an audience. CNN, by the way, MSNBC, theirs is kind of up and down. It's kind of all over the place, but they clearly don't have a solid business model, which is why they're on the chopping block. But you see layoffs, you see all of this, and I hate that for the people that are getting laid off. But how are you able to afford paying all these people millions of dollars to be on a TV screen that nobody's watching? Well, now we have the answer. You're not. And at the basis of it, why aren't people watching? Because we're the media now. We can do the fact checking. In an age of community notes, it sets a whole new standard for anybody in journalism. You have to be right. Gary, how you said for years, electricians, engineers, plumbers, they have to get things right.
Yeah, there's a ton of people in the country that can't get things wrong.
In the age of community notes, when it comes to reporting the facts, you have to get it right now. If you're a journalist, you better get it right. Otherwise, be an opinion maker.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So after the president's speech, that's the one thing that I noticed yesterday. And I'm talking about whether it was Democrat or Republican circles. It's like, what do they stand for? What's the purpose of the Democrats except we hate Trump?
Right.
And you've got an America right now that is looking for, people that have solutions. And it's like they have nothing. I mean, it really is amazing. And I think it just came to a head because of that. It was obvious. You saw the symbolism. And it just was so stupid. Even, holding up the signs, even the late night talk show hosts were making fun of that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, look, 8 years ago, it was cool to hate Trump. And now reality hit and you have other things to worry about and it's no longer important. Whether you like them or not, the average citizen is going through their day, again, looking for answers. What are you offering? In fact, I would say if you're not a Trump fan and you didn't vote for him, you're waiting for your party, the Democrats, to offer you anything, and this is what they're doing. They're behaving like children. No solutions. They just want to do something that goes viral to elevate their own profile. They're not helping you because they don't care.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here, as always.
Thank you.
And we've got a ton of audio. Here's Levitt yesterday from the White House podium. Here we go.
The behavior of Democrats last night was completely disgraceful and demonstrated how severely out of touch they are with the American public. It was the most shameful moment in the history of presidential addresses in that beautiful chamber. In what was supposed to be a unifying moment for our country, Democrat members of Congress instead screamed at the President of the United States, who was just overwhelmingly reelected by their constituents, walked out of the chamber, and worst of all, they disrespected the American people. Democrats didn't stand to keep men out of women's sports. They couldn't even clap for a girl who got her head smashed in by a man on a volleyball court. Democrats didn't stand for an innocent and beautiful child who is surviving brain cancer. They opposed eliminating taxes on tips and Social Security. They didn't stand in favor of cutting taxes for hardworking Americans. They couldn't even clap for two mothers whose daughters were killed by illegal aliens. One of the only things that could get Democrats off their feet last night was cheering for Ukraine, not for America. Last night was a very clarifying moment for our country. The Democrats exposed themselves as the party of insanity and hate, the party that wants to put America last. They've allowed their Trump derangement syndrome to stop them from celebrating America and our people.
The reason I wanted to play that is because she said insanity and hate, and it's something that I think for the Republican Party, you and I have talked about it. We talked about it this week. Mm-hmm. You need to start pounding on them, and you need to be specific about the identity politics, which is racism. They judge people by groups and not individuals.
Yep.
And the misogyny, the absolute women hatred.
Yep.
And you need to use those terms, and you need to be specific on it. And there needs to be a marketing campaign on it consistently all the time. You know, you and I have talked about it, that sometimes it feels like we're giving the same answers every single day.
Yeah,
well, that's because they're giving the same arguments every day, and there's only one answer back.
Exactly.
And
yeah, this isn't the same talk show over and over, but yet it kind of is because they keep doing the same thing over and over. And the one thing that the GOP as a party, as a collective, I think the Trump administration and the surrogates have actually done a very good job in this regard, but you have to hit it. And keep in mind, they're doing so much of the heavy lifting for you. And that's always been the case, but it seems more and more. After the address night before last, they showed exactly who they are and left their own people wondering what the hell's going on. Take that and run with it. And make sure that you're pounding it every single day. They're doing a lot of the heavy lifting, but you're going to have to do more. You know, the effort to change hearts and minds is constant, should be. You don't do it and think, you can't spike the ball in the end zone because you got a touchdown in the first quarter. I mean, they do. You can't do the dance, the victory dance. There is no victory dance because you haven't won the game. And even if you won the game, you didn't win the Super Bowl. The victory dance is when you win the Super Bowl. November, they won the Super Bowl, but guess what? We're in the new season. And it starts all over again. This kind of effort has to be constant. And it's not that hard. The Trump surrogates, I think Ramaswamy is probably one of the best at it. J.D. Vance, I think, is right up there with him. When Ramaswamy, during the primary, went to neighborhoods in Chicago, he just went and talked to people in neighborhoods in Chicago. And then he went back when the Democrats had their convention there. And he told the media there, and I think there may have been just a little bit of trolling, the Democrats. But he told them, he goes, I promised earlier this year, this is, again, last summer, that I would come back and visit them again and talk to them again. And that's what I'm doing. You have to be consistent. You have to be everywhere. This has to be an everyday effort. I do like the fact that I think Leavitt is doing a good job. I think it got a little tricky yesterday when they started talking exemptions on tariffs and what's going on there.
She couldn't answer the question. I was like, okay, because she said, when she became the White House spokesperson, no, I will never lie up here.
Right.
And they asked her, they said, whoa, what is to get the tariffs off, what level,
what mark do you have to meet? Yeah,
what mark do you have to meet? She couldn't answer the question.
Right. Yeah.
Which, again, the markets don't want to hear.
No, the uncertainty is where everybody's at. The markets yesterday were still on the Lutnick comment from the day before and waiting for an announcement.
CNBC had that waiting for her announcement and the compromise that's going to be made on tariffs.
Exactly.
And I'm sitting there going, wow, nothing. And then you saw the automobile one, and I went, okay, there's a number of things, and I don't know.
And then later the agricultural, the story that there could be, and it's a source story at CNBC, that there could be a deal on agriculture with Mexico and Canada. So we don't know.
Well, because the whole thing with the United States has been exporting food like crazy,
right?
And Trump was out there the other day saying the farmers are going to supply the food to the United States, and it's like he doesn't actually want exports of food,
right?
Because he doesn't want
based on that comment,
he doesn't want the imports of food, and it's like people are trying to figure out, well, what do you want when it comes to food? You can't sit there and say no imports of food. We have to have imports of food because the American consumer demands food that you can't grow in the United States in winter.
Right.
It's right. And so it's all what I saw yesterday, and I've thought about it. I said, well, I may just wait a month before I even bring it up again because they are so reactionary. It's extremely confident. We're putting the tariffs on today. Then the next day, exemption here, exemption there, exemption there. When they see different economic numbers and they get the calls from those industries, well, then what you start with that is now you've got other manufacturers screaming, well, why do cars get a month exemption? We don't get the exemption.
Well, because Leavitt even said, so that there's not that financial impact on them. Well, wait a minute. There's going to be a financial impact on them when the exemption passes and it goes into effect. So what then?
And so, but that's where you get into, well, wait a minute, then we need to protect this industry, that, and you can see it right now.
Right.
Okay, because the tariffs are going on now. I mean, within 24 hours, well, exemption here, exemption there, exemption here, exemption there, delay here. It's like, because they understand. And that's, by the way, that's all I care about. If everybody wants to, play the game of tariffs, there's a good game to be played, especially on reciprocal tariffs. And when I say game, I'm not insulting it. Reciprocal tariffs, I think, are okay. and should be used if somebody is doing it, to us.
Right.
But you can't make the case for Canada or Mexico because every single thing that Canada or Mexico does was approved by Donald Trump in the last trade bill.
Right.
If trade is horrible between the United States and Canada and Mexico, and this is why I can't believe the Democrats don't take advantage of it. They could sit there. He wrote the last bill.
Mm-hmm.
If what Canada's doing to us is horrible and what Mexico's doing to us is horrible, Trump wrote the bill.
Mm-hmm.
It's his people. They wrote it.
Mm-hmm.
His administration was the one that did it. And so, this they've got to be very, very careful. You saw the job numbers come out way below the ADP numbers, way below what they thought it was going to be. We look at the Atlanta Fed. The Atlanta Fed, again, coming out. There was a story yesterday saying, okay, if the tariffs go to the max, it could increase inflation 1.6%. But the administration has admitted, they've told the American people, stick with us, that, the reciprocal tariffs, you talk about the reciprocal tariffs that are coming April 2nd, but what's happening right now with Canada and Mexico are not reciprocal tariffs.
No.
And then it's, okay, we need to stop the fentanyl, but no, we need to have a country that tariffs all the time.
Right.
Nobody knows what the parameters are.
Right.
The markets don't know. And it just, every single day, it's like, and you're going to see the stock market go up and down and up and down and up and down. And so what I did chuckle a little bit is the administration saying, well, we don't care about Wall Street, we care about Main Street. Well, then you haven't paid attention to Trump over the last 50 years because Trump does care and understands in the stock market, if it goes down, that affects people's 401ks
Right.
and other investments. And so he understands it. But it almost as if it's just complete confusion when it comes to it because I don't know. I really can't. I am speaking on it, but I really can't speak as to what the goal is. I don't know what the goal is from the president. I've heard 2 or 3 different goals because it's like, okay, well, if the fentanyl stops, will we stop the tariffs? Well,
Right,
the president said 2 weeks ago, no, the tariffs stay no matter what. That's how we're going to fund.
Right.
That's how we're going to fund, and get rid of income taxes and do that. Well, then you figure it out and you say, well, you can't get to that number.
Well, there was a story yesterday that was getting some social media attention on the raw materials when it comes to fentanyl, right? And so the raw ingredients, basically, and how China is moving that through Canada and Mexico. Be clear. Line out your goal to the American people. If Canada doesn't get on top of this, and this, and doesn't straighten out this on trade or, whatever you're looking for, because I don't think it's strictly fentanyl. I think it's a number of things.
No,
and if you're not happy with USMCA, don't be very clear. It didn't work as planned. We're going back in. We're going to go back to the table on USMCA. Otherwise, the tariffs remain in place. Whatever your goal is there, because if you take the lead on that, it's like, all right, I may have a few questions, but I know where you're going. I know what you're looking to get. And it doesn't matter that you're showing your hand, by the way, to your trade partners. Because if the tariffs go into effect, your trade partners feel it from day one. They know you're being real in that moment. And then the negotiation comes back. I think that's actually some of the leverage he has in terms of being unpredictable in nature as an individual, is that you don't know what he's going to do. But you've got to be clear on this with the American people. And it doesn't, people are for or against tariffs. That's not, the point. The point is you've got to be clear with them as to what you're trying to achieve.
Well, domestically for the Republican Party, look, my goal is I'm a free market person. But if if somebody is not abiding by that as a trade partner, well, then the retaliatory tariffs are fine with me. I have no problem with that at all. In fact, I think we probably should have done it, with Europe a long time ago.
Right.
But the goal should be to isolate China. That's what the goal should
Eventually,
be. You know,
everybody's in line. You
right.
got deals, and you straighten everything up on trade with everybody else, and everybody turns to China collectively and says, we're going to choke you out and carve you out as a pariah if you don't get on top of, number one, intellectual property rights. Because just as important as trade is intellectual property rights. When you look at the wealth expansion in the United States over the years, it comes from mining, but it also comes from innovation. Innovation is key, and they steal that innovation, intellectual property, on the regular, and you cannot let them get away with that. I said during the last term for Trump that if he doesn't get it done, I don't think anybody else will have the political will going forward. I could be wrong now because of the team he's got in place, and it could be that if he doesn't get it done now, that maybe a J.D. Vance could get it done or somebody else down the road. But still, it has to be done, and that requires you to be have everybody on your side in facing China. You know, Jinping yesterday with the, you know, oh, no, we're ready for war, whether it's trade war or anything else, you know, let's do this kind of response. Well, the fact of the matter is China really isn't ready for a trade war. And if we had even greater leverage from the rest of the world trade partners that we have in facing China and taking on China, it would be, he would be sweating.
Which we said should have been our goal all along.
Right.
But like I said, the one that makes no sense is the explanation with Canada, that they all know it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which the last couple of weeks, you know, we have a horrible trade surplus with Canada. We don't.
Right.
You know, and this is what doesn't make sense. This is where I want clarity from the administration.
Mm-hmm.
They say that you know, the trade surplus is horrible, and the deal there and the way they're treating us is horrible. Well, number one, you wrote the deal. Trump wrote the deal.
Right.
If Canada is horrible, you wrote the deal.
Right.
Number two, we don't have a trade imbalance if you don't count oil.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
We have a trade surplus with Canada, and the oil. Trump said 2 weeks ago, he was demanded. I want, you know, TC Energy down here to get this pipeline, you know, going so we can pump Canadian oil through here, which is sold at a discount to the United States, and he wants it. Well, then I don't know what your complaint is about Canada.
Right. Yeah.
And nobody can explain to me what the complaint is about Canada.
Right.
No one's been able to articulate in the administration what the complaint is.
Right.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
After fuel, an owner-operator's second biggest variable cost is tires. To save, get as much life out of them as possible with good habits. Maintain proper inflation. It's free and easy, yet it's the highest saving maintenance you can perform on the truck. Improper inflation is by far the greatest reason tires fail early. Perform routine maintenance. If a technician can by hand initiate irregular movements in tie rod ends, kingpins, wheel bearings, and torque rods, that spells trouble. Fight irregular wear by replacing suspension components. On the steer axle, change your shocks at least as often as you change your tires. On the drive axle, replace shocks halfway through the tire's life, and when the tires are changed too. Finally, employ good driving habits. You have full control here. More conservative driving over rough surfaces helps reduce wear. Speeding, hard braking, curbing, and tight turns cause tires to wear fast. On the other hand, steady acceleration, braking, and steering can extend the life, saving a bundle. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section on the website for more details on this and many other topics.
Brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Look, the president, when it comes to China or anybody that has tariffs on our products that we don't have a trade agreement with, totally legit. I get it.
Yep.
You can make the argument to me that tariffs are justifiable.
Mm-hmm.
You're specific with China, and I clearly understand. Nobody's been able to explain to me why Canada.
Right.
Or even Mexico.
Right.
Since it's this president that did the free trade agreement with them, everything that Canada or Mexico does was approved by Trump just a couple of years ago.
And if you're not happy
So-
with the results of USMCA,
right, redo
then
it.
say it.
Then say it.
No one's
No.
going to say, see? Nope.
That
if
is
you're
a-
going back to the table, that's fine.
That
Say
is a totally reasonable
Yep.
position to have.
Sure.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio.
Mm-hmm.
This is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I just came upon this. I don't know who wrote it, but it's Byron York. Said the Washington Post column yesterday. It might have been when several dozen Democrats walked into Donald Trump's congressional address wearing coordinated shades of bubble gum, but it was definitely by the time several dozen Democrats started waving ping-pong-sized paddles in the House chamber that I really started to worry about the resistance.
No, that's a great point. It's hard to that was brilliant in the way it was phrased, because for me it was hard to describe the weirdness, because in my mind, because we do radio, describe it to somebody who doesn't have the visual, right? Who's not looking at it. And the only thing I come up with is it was weird. They had decided as a collective, the Democrats were going to come in, and it wasn't just enough to sit there and not applaud or not stand, even for a child who's battling brain cancer. You have to go further than that. You have to go, you have to do what, yes, who do we start with? Okay, Al Green, he's the first, right? Put him out there. He'll wave his cane and shout, and they'll threaten to throw him out, and he'll keep doing it until they throw him out. We'll have a moment where the GOP has to throw somebody out from our party. And they thought, I know this in my heart of hearts, they thought, or Al Green himself thought, I'm going to be the victim. This is going to look bad for the GOP. No, it looked bad on you. Everything they were doing looked horrible. And it wasn't necessarily because it was against decorum. It was how they were protesting. You know what I mean? It was because in that, here's the thing. In that setting, I don't know how you would do it effectively. I'm trying to think in my mind, if you really wanted to, show your disdain for Trump and protest as a party in that setting, how would you do it? I don't have the answer. It's just not the setting. And again, it's not really based on decorum. It's just, it's not the room. That's not where you do it.
Well, I know how you effectively, remember, protest is interesting because you're a member of Congress. You're a part of a major political party.
Mm-hmm.
Is protesting without specifics even where you should go? Or should you win on the ideas?
Right.
I'm reading here. It says, Congress descends into chaos as Trump booed and Democrat removed. It wasn't chaos.
No.
It was very entertaining.
Yeah.
Trump was smiling the whole time.
Right.
When they removed Al Green, Trump had a big smile on his face.
Yep.
It was extremely entertaining.
Yep.
Why? Because, think about it. Seriously, the Democrats have become James Dean or Tom Petty rebel without a cause, rebel without a clue.
Yeah.
One or the other.
Yeah.
Or both. Because it's like, what are you protesting? Are you protesting securing the border?
Yeah.
Are you protesting misogyny?
Right.
Excuse me. Are you protesting because you're pro-misogyny?
Are you protesting a 13-year-old with brain cancer? Because,
Right.
when you don't stand and applaud the 13-year-old, nobody in the world expects you to stand and applaud Trump. This is a 13-year-old with brain cancer who's fought harder than any Democrat ever in his 13 years. And you can't stand and applaud him.
Now,
This is who they are.
It's bizarre. I'm not surprised. Nothing the Democrats do surprises me.
No.
But you don't have to add you if you want to say, if you're a Democrat, you want to say, well, you guys, you're conservatives, you're always going to be against what the Democrats do. Almost everything and every criticism we have had against the Democratic Party over the years, you have had lifelong Democrats almost mirror exactly what we have said.
Yeah. Yep.
The problem is identity politics. James Carville just said it a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Tim Ryan has said that. Other
Right.
Democrats have said that.
Right.
You cannot be judging people by groups and not as individuals in 2025. It's racist. Stop being racist. Critical race theory, people figure that out. DEI, people figure that out.
Yep.
The going after black conservatives, which they're still doing.
Yeah.
And saying, well, they're not really legitimately black. And it's like all this.
Well, what's interesting is that, remember during the Kamala Harris campaign, and Barack Obama was actually scolding black men.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
And then some of them reacted going, what in the
Right.
world?
You're supposed to vote this way.
Well, and see,
You're black.
well, and what's interesting is it was an observation in 2024 that you and I had been making for a long, long time. But it was a response by the people he was actually targeting in this case. And it was refreshing to actually be able to see that back and forth. Again, in a world where we are the media, people can respond, do their own fact-checking, and have that instant response to someone like a Barack Obama who wants to wag his finger, a Bill Clinton-esque kind of scolding that you're a black male and you need to vote this way. And they were like, what in the world? And this is, by the way, I think part of what's going on right now. When you see the party respond, some in the party respond to what happened in the chamber the other night, and they're going, like you said, late night comedians were having fun with it. They were making fun of the Democrats. When you see other Democrats going, oh, this is not a good look. This is not a good look. It changes a lot. Yesterday was a bad day for the Democratic Party.
Well, this is Representative Latifah Simon of California, okay, about Al Green, because it's like they think they're in the 60s again. Here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Seems like a blatant disrespect for the House, and it wasn't coming from Representative Green. It was coming from the men behind him on the right side who were telling him and yelling, sit down. I mean, it felt like I was watching something in a history class of racists yelling at an elderly black man.
So Al Green's the victim.
No, exactly what I just said.
Yeah,
This.
that's why
It's exactly what they were
and-
wanting. They wanted him
Right.
to be through.
And you didn't know that I had that lined up.
No, I
you
didn't
even know. You
I
had no
did.
idea.
I had
that lined
no
up.
idea,
Yes, that
and
was-
I had not seen that or heard that comment.
Yeah,
It's like the protester back in the day. Martin Sheen has been arrested 423 million times, but only as a protester, right?
Yes.
And I don't have anything
No
against
nukes.
Martin. Exactly, I have nothing against Martin Sheen. I think he's great, and we highly disagree on things. But that's fine. He's one of those that I kind of
He did a great movie.
It's
The Way.
If you haven't seen The Way, I was just thinking about that movie
What
yesterday.
a great movie.
If you haven't seen that, you're missing out.
If
That
you-
should be in your list of movies that you watch and rewatch on the regular. for sure.
It's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah.
His son did a great job.
Yeah,
Directing and writing.
Right.
That
it was a great
that movie.
But-
And we always probably, if I'm around my sister come Easter time, it's become sort of like an Easter tradition, that movie.
Yeah.
Even though it's not an Easter movie.
Right.
It has sort of become
It's
like
about
whenever-
faith. It's about cultures. It's about you got to see the movie. You just got to
Yeah,
see.
it's a great movie.
But
Okay, go on.
Martin Sheen's been arrested, countless times, and that's the thing. But in this setting, they needed a victim. They needed to create a victim. Now, whether it was Al Green acting on his own, accord, just thinking, I'm going to do this and I'm going to be the victim here. I'll have, the white guy throw me out, the white GOP guy throw me out, and this will look bad on them. Nope. Sorry. It was a bad look for you because you come off looking weak. Anybody can do that. Getting thrown out of places is actually pretty easy. I can tell you how to get it done. You can actually, it's something protesting. Some of the protesters actually lay down in the streets. They lay down. Laying down is easy. That I can tell you how to do. And they think they're fighting. No. Where are you actually fighting? The only thing Al Green is doing is building his own profile in attacking Trump. But the American people, this is not 8 years ago. And the American people are not with him. In fact, I think there are a number of people in his own party.
Are you a little
that
bit? I'm a little bit surprised but impressed how quickly the narrative has changed in this country.
Yes.
I mean, and maybe it's because of as you and I called it, because we felt it in the summer of 2020. I have never felt that it didn't affect us at all, but I've never felt that type of blue wave of intimidation that swept across industry, sports, everything, even in media.
Yeah.
You saw, that it was in broadcast companies that you've got to follow this particular narrative. Of course, we didn't get it, and if we ever did, we wouldn't abide by it.
Well, remember
Anyway,
the one woman on the city council that said, I've got to vote this way because the mob will come at me if I don't?
Yes. And I wonder if that's part of the response is that, you and I remember when they have conservative, young conservatives go to college campuses and say, so do you really think a man can be a woman if the man says so? Oh, yeah. Well, can you be 10 feet tall if you're only 6 feet? Well, I guess if you want to be. Can you be a different race if you want to be? Well, I guess if you want to be. And you and I looked at each other and go, they don't buy this at all.
You could hear it. You could hear
Right.
their hesitation and kind of, nervousness that they were being intimidated.
Is that the blowback from the intimidation and therefore the implied threats? If you don't agree with this, we'll destroy your college education. Think about the radical transgender movement that survived on the threats of intimidation of young women athletes.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that. And so when finally that blows over and it's like, go ahead, speak. We're not going to censor you. You're not going to lose your position. You're not going to lose your scholarship. You're not going to lose your job. You can talk about freedom. You can talk about freedom of speech. You can talk about these things. You can attack the insanity of the radical transgender movement and identity politics. And all of a sudden, boom, it just opens up.
Yep. Yeah.
Because if you look at it, I find it very surprising and refreshing the number of young people that support Trump.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very interesting how the tide has changed.
866-90 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's our Carlin. I'm Gary McNamara. Thanks. A couple of emails already received. People saying, we're going to make sure we shop Target. Target faces 40-day boycott for rolling back DEI initiatives. Well, the boycott last Friday didn't work. You see, Amazon had a great day
right.
last
the Al
week.
Sharpton boycott from last week. Yeah. Look, on the DEI thing, it wasn't going to work for business. It just isn't going to work.
No.
Because you know why? The same reason that the Democrats couldn't spend money. Even money that was already allocated, they couldn't actually put it in use because DEI corners you and then dares you to do something. You can't get anything done in a DEI world.
That's still one of the best stories ever about the failure of liberalism,
Right.
what liberalism eventually gets you to.
Right.
We can tax you, we
Right.
can take the money, but because of the regulations of DEI
That we created.
we don't have the ability to actually spend the money and get anything done.
Exactly.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Hi. I was a victim once of identity politics.
Were you?
I was a victim.
Oh, how'd that go?
Victim.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What happened?
And I thought about it when we were talking about, identity politics and in general, judging people by groups and not as individuals. It goes back to 1990. I'd been a talk show host for about 5 months. And
1990, huh? Okay.
Yes, 1990.
Yeah, to make it sound so
Wow,
long ago.
that sounds so
1990.
Oh, my God. Wow.
Back in the 1900s.
That's so long ago, Green Day didn't have a hit yet.
Well, young people are saying, were there even people back then? Or was it just dinosaurs?
I'll tell you, I was around. My career was just
I was about to give it my all. And by my all, I mean my everything.
So it was, I'd been a talk show host for a while, and this was, I became a talk show host in Niagara Falls, New York.
Mm-hmm.
It was a St. Patrick's Day party that was going on at the Armory there.
Mm.
And so I was there with all station people. I remember nobody was drinking, so it had to be an official. It had to be an official.
I'm sorry, did you say party? And nobody was drinking?
Yeah, it was St. Patrick's Day party, and we weren't drinking. I was there with people from the radio station,
Okay.
and I can't remember if it was a promotion or whatever.
Ah.
And I guess it was because I probably had to say something, and then people knew who I was.
Okay.
And I had a group of people walk up to me,
Mm-hmm.
and they were livid at me.
Yeah.
You know what they were livid at me for?
Hmm.
because, again, I'd only been a talk radio host for 5 months. I didn't want to be one, but I was giving my opinion, and my opinion more matched, without question, with, being a conservative, and therefore promoting more Republican policies at that time. And there was like 3, 4 of these guys that came up to me, older, but furious at me, basically saying I have betrayed Irish Catholics. I'll never forget that. Now, was I mad? No. I was dying laughing, and they were getting angrier and angrier. I said, are you actually telling me that because I'm an Irish Catholic, I must vote Democrat? And they went, yes.
You can't possibly be a conservative.
I could not possibly be a conservative because I'm Irish Catholic. It's like, where the hell does that come? What are you talking about?
Well,
and I didn't find it offensive. I found it hilarious because that thinking was so Neanderthal, even way back in the 1990s.
Back in the 1900s. Yeah, it's not a new thought. But it is a new or a more aggressive movement in terms of what the mob was trying to do, how they were going after people. Now, in that setting where you were at, that's fairly aggressive. Come approaching you can't possibly call yourself a. Now, were they telling you to, that you should no longer be associated with Catholicism, or were they suggesting any kind of move there that?
No, they did not suggest that I could not come back the next year to the St. Patrick's Day party.
Okay. All right. Well,
they did not suggest
these
that,
days. The movement would require action, right? We need you to. You can no longer be a Catholic, or you need to, instead of converting to Catholicism, you need to convert to liberalism.
Exactly. Well, I just, for me, never having any kind of thought like that in my head.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was so foreign to me that I burst out laughing, because coming from an Irish Catholic family that came, my dad's side came from Canada. And my grandfather McNamara, came to the United States because of the bigotry of Irish Catholics in the Toronto area. And I just found that out about 10 years ago. I had no idea. My nephew found it out. He was talking to my dad, and my dad told him. I said, Dad, you never told me. And my grandfather's like, he never told me. He goes, yeah, because we've always been people that look forward. We don't look back. And that was my dad's answer to me. So that's why we didn't bring it up. It wasn't a concern. But when my grandfather came to the United States and then became a citizen, because the town that I grew up in was completely a Republican town, he helped form the Democrat Party. We're going back, 1930? I don't even know what year it would be. And so the reason he did, my grandfather was as conservative as you could possibly imagine. But he helped form the Democrat Party and became a rep and all that, for the Democratic Party, because he believed he was coming to America and it was really important to have at least a two-party system. That's why he did it.
Yeah.
It wasn't based on that he agreed with everything, because at that point you could say the Democratic Party was racist. With Jim Crow laws and everything else that they were supporting at that point. And my grandfather was not a racist at all.
Yeah.
Not close to that.
Right.
And so, but even with that, there was never a discussion ever that because we were Irish Catholic, you had to think a certain way. And believe me, it was funny because I was talking to, talking to one of my siblings yesterday, about, some of my nieces and nephews, and, they now view us as the old people.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like sometimes they can be embarrassed to be around us. And it's like we're not used to it because even though we're older, we think we're like 17, 18 years old. What do you mean they can't relate to us?
Right, yeah.
What are you talking? Because we're older? And I was saying, yeah, but remember, did we really want to be? You know how you get embarrassed when you're with all of, your classmates and then your parents come around. Of course, you're embarrassed by that.
Yeah, sure.
And I was telling to one of my siblings, I said, look, you just got to get used to it because that's going to be a phase for a little bit. And you can talk to him and go, you can recognize us. And I said, and so we probably felt a little bit embarrassed, whatever, or didn't want to say something or be around them. And I said, but then I remember my going up to my grandmother's house, and my dad had 9 brothers and sisters and 6 boys. And so you'd go up there for dinner. Everybody was there over at my grandmother's house, and it was debate central. I mean, nobody agreed on anything. And the classic discussions that they would have on the one that I remember more than anything was completely a useless conversation is whether the 1930 whatever vehicle had a rumble seat or not. And that debate went on for a couple of years. And there was like, what are you talking about? It did not. Yes, it did.
See, in today's world, it wouldn't go on for 10 seconds because you'd Google it.
Yeah, exactly right. Did the 1930-something vehicle have a rumble seat, just like where you have the back trunk, but it would open up and there would be a seat there in the trunk.
Right.
But I just, for some reason, that one sticks with me. But they argued everything constantly. But it wasn't done in a way where there was ever, anybody really losing their temper or whatever. It was just, it was always respectful, even if it got a little loud. But it was always fascinating for me to watch that. But never, ever, in all the politics that were involved in it, never was there look, you should have this opinion because you're Irish Catholic. That never really came up. Or you should have this political bent on this particular issue. And so when that hit me the first time, I burst out laughing because it was a foreign concept. I go, what are you talking about? Get out of my face. What are you talking about? I need to have a certain opinion or belong to a certain political party because I'm Irish Catholic. So maybe that's something that sat in the back of my head, that when I saw the modern identity politics movement really start with conservative blacks in the late 80s, early 90s with modern talk radio, because some of the first people that were attacked were black conservatives that were, in talk radio in the early 90s when it really started. And I remember that. And so I've always maybe that made me a little bit sensitive to identity politics, where it just infuriated me because, again, I was raised that you're autonomous. And I tell that, I'm really close to my nephew. I'm really close to my great-nephew. I tell them all the time, I said, look, you're going to be listening to me, whatever. Don't take the opinion that I have because I'm your uncle.
Right. I said that to my children. I said,
not take, and
I want you to learn how the world works yourself.
Right.
I mean, I'm going to teach you how the world works. And if you don't hold the same opinion, then I'm going to force you to move out.
But no, but I tell them, but I'll explain to you every single point of why I believe what I believe. I just won't throw a generic thing at you. And I've always had that discussion, especially with my nephew and great-nephew I'm very, very close to, that, look, you can feel free to talk to me. And if your opinion differs from me, I want you to be able to explain your opinion.
Yeah.
But I would encourage you to be able to explain your opinion close to how I explain my opinion, but you may not be able to do it yet because you're young.
Yeah.
You don't know. You haven't gone through I said, you don't have wisdom yet. And I explained to my great-nephew just the other day what wisdom is.
Right.
He said, well, what exactly is wisdom? I said, well, the fact is, I've made so many mistakes in my life that I've learned from them.
No,
And
that actually is.
That's what
Yeah.
wisdom is.
Right.
He looked at me because he thought first I was like
Well,
bragging. I'm like, no. I failed so many times.
That's it.
I've learned from my failures.
My scars teach me a lot. And, I have a younger family member who is a Houston Texans fan. But we have common ground. We both agree the Cowboys suck. So it's important.
So I had the experience with identity politics. Now, it didn't hurt me. I thought it was humorous because it was so dumb.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
yeah.
I was really interested and fascinated by their anger at me, though,
Mm-hmm.
as if that was such a big part of the culture that they grew up in.
Well, no, but it is. That's what to me, that's what's fascinating. I forget who it was. I think it was a comedian talking about it. And it was Irish Catholics in the Boston area. It was, well, no, you got to be a Democrat. It's there's no discussion. You got to be a Democrat. And I forget who it was that was talking about that. I think it was a comedian. And I thought to myself, man, I just want to, observe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's deeply embedded for generations. And there will be no discussion. And it's like, okay, but how did you as an individual get to that point, right? Like when we talk about our kids or our nieces and nephews and forming their own opinions, well, hold on a second. Did you form your own opinion, or is this what you were told to believe, or are you just following everybody else? I mean, I'm fascinated by that. Totally fascinated by that.
For me, and I talk about this with my longest best friend, Jeff. And we talk about, because we were in high school together, and we just didn't fit in any clique, and we didn't want to.
Right. Yeah.
There was always this, and my brother was the same way, and my friends too. We hated authority. If you told us to do something, we do the opposite just because we're not going to do what you tell us to do. Now, that can be a problem as you get older in life, but I think having that opinion, and as you are an adult, focusing on the fact that I'm going to be autonomous, and I'm not going to go along just to get along.
Yeah.
That I'm going to find out, what the truth is, and that's what my opinion is going to be based on. I think having that attitude as a teenager helped me.
Well,
it helped that I know, yeah.
And that's it. As a teenager, as an adult, defying authority, that's one thing, and saying I'm going to work to help laws change, or, promote the change of laws or whatever. As a teenager, you're defying authority because you don't want to get out of the car because you have weed in your pocket.
I never saw weed till I was 19 or 20, so I didn't have that problem at 14, 15, which is amazing because I talked to kids I went to high school with that said, "Oh, it was all over the place."
Yeah, it was everywhere.
I wasn't in that group,
right?
And so I was surprised. I was like, "Well, I never saw it." I was in college for a while. Somebody showed me a joint for the first time, and I said. They looked and go, "Look what I have," and I said, "Wow, what is that?" I go, "That looks like I said, "That's a nice firecracker."
Right. Yeah.
I had no idea.
When you have hair down to your belt and you're walking down the hallway at school, a lot of people ask you if they can buy something from you.
You've got to post that picture sometime.
Well, I don't
see that picture.
I've got to
of you
find
with long
the
hair.
actual pictures of my hair at its longest when it was actually at my belt. And I've got to go find them. I think my mom has a few of them. But.
My hair got long when I was a machinist and a steel worker.
Yeah.
And it was just because when I looked at some pictures, I said, "Dad, why weren't you furious at me?" He said, You weren't making a statement. You were just too lazy to get your hair cut.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're right. 866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up on the bottom of the hour, we just got tons of audio cut. Really interesting stuff from CNN as they talk about what's wrong with the Democratic Party. Plus, we want to get to more of the Sanctuary City hearings from yesterday. You did see, though, I want to make note, you saw that 538's gone.
Yeah.
That ABC has dropped it. That's Nate Silver's 538.
Used to be Nate Silver's. He hasn't been associated with it
Right.
in, I don't know, for a year or two.
Yeah.
But it is, many people know it as Nate Silver's 538.
Yeah. And we'd used it a ways back. We hadn't in the last couple of years. I mean, Rasmussen actually wrote about it, saying 538 credibility took a massive hit when it made the politically motivated decision to drop us from its analysis a year ago, citing bogus claims of conservative bias.
Yep.
Rasmussen went on to be one of the most accurate pollsters of the 2024 election.
Right.
And that's what they do. They look at all the polls and they would analyze the polls. And they used to be a resource, but less and less over the last couple of years, haven't they?
Yeah.
Nobody really used
gave
them
them
at all.
any credibility. There wasn't much. On social media, anecdotally, I didn't see people using them. In fact, it was quite the opposite. I saw people making negative comments about them, about how there's zero credibility there. We can have conversations about Nate Silver because he still does analysis and everything else. I also have some questions about his poker strategies. He's a very good poker player. But, it's 538 when they took it, and ran with it. Yeah, not much there.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here this morning. So,
Thank
yeah,
you.
just interesting when we talk about identity politics. I always just love that story, so I can pretend I was a victim too of identity politics.
Yeah. Look, aren't we all victims eventually?
I'm a victim.
Well, I mean, if you're a Democrat, you believe that eventually, if you're not a victim already, then you're going to be one. Just wait around. We'll call you when it's your time. Is that how it works? Because that's, we talked about how they break it down into more and more subgroups. Oh, we have a new set of victims today. Now, they were part of the old group yesterday. But everybody who's not part of the new group now is an oppressor of the new group. That's got to hurt.
Well,
That's just mean.
I blame the Stooges because Curly was a victim of circumstance, if you remember.
I think he was.
I'm a victim of circumstance.
I think so.
Do you think that the public has gotten sick of the whining?
Yeah.
Most of us don't like whiners. And since we've been practicing victimhood really the last 40 years, do you think it finally gets to the point where people just say, well, like I got from Dad, shut up, DTJ, which meant from my father, do the job.
Yeah.
Just do the job. And whenever he'd say it, DTJ. The funny thing is, because he's in physical therapy and all that, and at times he doesn't want to do it. He's 90, he could be 99 in a little over 4 weeks. And, it's tough when you get to be that age.
Mm-hmm.
And, so they're like, yeah, sometimes you don't know what to say to him. And I say, just tell him, Dad, DTJ. throw it right back at him.
Yeah, right.
And I did when I was on the phone with him. I said,
Yeah.
DTJ. He goes, yeah, I know, DTJ. Got to get the job done. Stop the whining.
Yeah.
Get the job done. And he's probably thinking to himself, my idiot children throwing back at me what I said to them for their entire life. But, yeah, I got it from my dad all the time. Stop whining, just get the job done. Work.
Yeah.
But that's what you got from that generation and the generation before, which is the generation that I know. My grandfather, my grandparents, and my father, which was, work. And I know a lot of people don't like that, the whole work-life, what is it? Work-life balance is what they say.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you this. Have you ever spent like 5 minutes thinking about your work-life balance?
No. No. None. No time at all. I've thought, here's what I spend my time thinking about in relation to this. How I'm going to pay for eating, how I'm going to pay for shelter, how I'm going, I always tell my kids, when we're talking things, and it's like, but I'm not spending that money on that because future Eric needs to eat. And those are the things I think about and it started right away with me. I remember the first lawn I mowed. I took that $10, Laughlin Air Force Base. Next to the BX, they had this little cafe thing. And my brother was playing baseball at the field behind it. And I told my mom, I want to go buy my own dinner. I bought 2 pieces of chicken and a soda. And it was the greatest ever. And it was great because I paid for it. It was my work paying off. And I thought, all right, this is a good thing. Now, if I can do this 1 million times, I can move out by next week. Now, I was only 10 years old. But for me, it was always gaining the independence, but then realizing quickly, because as a teen, I wanted a large family. I wanted kids. I wanted a family. Well, that sounds expensive. And you realize, okay, there are things you're going to have to do. And it's a great motivator. And even though my kids are all grown, I think to myself, but there's still, work to be done. I still have to, again, future Eric has to eat. And I have to provide for the years that I can't earn, going forward. I have to find a way to earn when I'm no longer capable of working, that kind of thing. Those are the things that motivate me. The life-work balance. People can do what they want to do, but living within your means is the key to all that. And you and I both have relatives, in fact, that have, they didn't go out and make $1 million a year, $1 million a year at their job, but they saved, they lived within their means. In fact, I have a brother who's single, retired, everything's paid for. He's got money coming in every month. And so he's in a place where he accommodated for all of that. And to me, that's success. You don't have to make, $1 billion to be called successful.
No, successful is being able to take care of yourself and doing what you want to do.
Right.
It really isn't about the money.
Exactly.
For me, when people talk about it today, work-life balance, for most people that I know, it means I want plenty of vacation time. Because we all think work-life balance in some way. For example, making sure that we exercise, making sure you do the things that you can remain healthy, while you're working. But as for vacations and things like that, as I've said, when I was 8 or 9 years old, whenever it was when I started paying attention to the radio to get a snow day off, and I went, that's got to be the coolest job, to be the person on the radio to tell somebody they have the day off. I thought that was just a great job. So I was always fascinated with it. And then I wanted to do when I first got into college, and then I did it. I did it then, and then radio a little bit after college and couldn't make any money at it. But the most important thing when I got to be, 14, 15, 16, 17, the paper out cutting the lawns, I wanted, it was, I don't know if it was instinct or taught or whatever, but I wanted to be independent of my parents' allowance.
Right.
That was the thing, because, if I earn the money, then I thought that if I didn't get the allowance anymore, I'd be able to get out of the housework.
Yeah.
And then after I started earning the money,
yeah.
And I told my parents, well, then now that I'm not taking an allowance from you, I don't have to do the housework. They said, no. You have a responsibility to your family. And then I learned that portion of what becoming an adult was all about.
Yeah, right.
Oh, no. We're giving you allowance, but, you're doing work and everything for the allowance. But, no, you have an obligation to your family outside of earning money. No way!
Right.
Come on! What's this about?
I don't even know you people.
Right, what are you talking about? But once I got back into radio, I heard Jerry Seinfeld said, I didn't care if I ever made any money. All I wanted to do was be able to take care of myself and do that. That was my thought process. That's all I wanted to do was talk in front of a microphone. Even now, I could be retired, and I don't want to be. Got nothing to do with anybody knowing who I am. It's got nothing to do, and you know this. We think the same way here. Got nothing to do with celebrity. We love the process. We love the actual.
I like the work. I like the experience of doing this.
Yeah. There's nothing I'd rather do than this. And as I've said before, I flew with the Thunderbirds. I took 9 Gs. I was upside down in a F-16, and I could see Mount Rainier hundreds of miles away through the clouds. I was in a, international sailing race. I flipped a vehicle at flipped a race car at Texas Motor Speedway. I've done. It's like when people say, "Don't you want to see the Eiffel Tower?" I could care less. I really could. I might want to see the Grand Canyon. I haven't seen that yet, but other than that, I really don't. I really don't care. So work-life balance just has really never been any kind of thought. Especially, I understand that I need vacations, but you and I are the same way. We go on vacation. By the time we get to Tuesday, maybe if we're having the best time of our lives, Wednesday morning, we want to be back to work. It's always been that way. It's like it is an addiction. I don't have an addictive personality when it comes to like alcohol and things like that. But I do have it for this. There is a like, I got to get back out. Oh, I talk about this. Oh, and it's got nothing to do. It's nothing to do because people think, oh, you want to be right all the time. Well, it's nice if you're going to do this job to be right most of the time. But no, that's not it. It's just I like the process of doing it. I love the process of talking in front of a microphone and everything that leads up to it. You and I had this discussion the other day about the fact of if you do the work beforehand, coming on the air. And I was telling it to my great nephew when it comes to basketball. I said, look, it's not important to have the will to win. It's important to have the will to prepare to win. Because once you do that, then once you get on the basketball court, you don't have to think anymore. You're ready to go. Well, and I said the same thing. I was explaining to him it's the same thing of radio. When you prepare to do it, once you get on, this isn't work.
It's why training for the military, training for law enforcement, everybody I know that's been in the military or law enforcement, they will tell you that the training is what kicks in those moments, right? And that's it by design. You want that training to kick in the moments when it counts, of course.
Yep.
And so you want that. And for me, I want the experience of every day looking to learn something. I don't have it on a to-do list. I'm not saying, all right, you must learn, but I am actually hungry to learn something every day. I mean, that's just, I have an appetite for learning something new because I don't have those experiences of, whatever it might be. And as the world, as we go through whatever, analyzing things, breaking it down, understanding is part of that learning experience.
Just give you an example, and we haven't talked about it yet, but we will. The court ruling yesterday.
I was going to say, SCOTUS is a prime example.
The court ruling yesterday that you and I could not get a hand. We knew on social media.
It's mind-boggling.
Where both sides were going on it, but I came in, I looked at you, and I said, I still don't fully understand this. What is this? What is this? Where does this lead here? What are they saying here? And finally, you and I worked it out and go, oh, okay. But that was a fascinating process. But me not knowing exactly that I couldn't figure out to the point that I was satisfied 100% that I understand the ruling was driving me crazy.
Right.
There was an addiction in my mind. I got to find this out.
Well,
and it was frustrating me yesterday.
For me, it's always, what am I missing? I was actually somewhere in an office, and when the headline came across, and I thought, well, no, I'm misreading the headline, or the headline's wrong. I'll figure this out when I get back to my home office when I'm doing show prep. And then I get back, and it was even more mind-boggling, and I thought, okay. But, this is the AIDS vaccine global healthcare case, and it's, Margot Cleveland really did a great rundown on this, and yesterday and makes some great points. If you should follow her on X.
Yeah, you should. She's really, really good.
But she writes, Justice Alito's dissent said it best when he opened with, quote, "I am stunned." Because that's me, and by the way, that made me feel better about it. Because as a layman, I look at it and go, okay, what am I missing? What are they trying to do here? She goes on to write, but a note on what the majority actually did, which is slightly different than it appears, is even more outrageous.
Well, that was the thing. The thing I didn't understand was simple.
Yeah, right.
And all of a sudden, that's it. And
right.
We'll get to that coming up on the top of the hour, plus a ton of audio coming up. We got to start playing this audio because we're not going to get through the week. There's so much to play here, from the Sanctuary City hearings to CNN going after the Democratic parties, talking about how clueless they are and everything else. Whew, it's Red Eye Radio.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up on the top of the hour, the Supreme Court case yesterday. We'll get to that. One of the best articles I've read about where the country is right now. Not articles, a couple of paragraphs.
Okay.
Not even the entire article, just a couple of paragraphs.
Yeah.
Plus, we'll have more audio. Jim Jordan, the Sanctuary City mayor's testimony yesterday, and a whole bunch more.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Welcome.
Hi.
How's everybody doing?
Happy Thursday.
After the president's speech the other night and the Democrats' response, one of the questions is, where is America right now? And I found this fascinating and just happened to come upon this. I think I found it in realclearpolitics.com from Voz.us. And I had to look up who they are because I've never read anything from them before. Vaz, you're going to like this. Ready? Vaz is an American conservative Spanish-language news media firm founded in 2022. Its headquarters are in Las Colinas, Texas.
Oh, yeah. All right.
What, about a mile south of us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's right here. We're
Yes. But this is
it's part of Irving, and that's the
Right.
border city. I mean, that's the next city over from the city we're in.
This is all in English, though, but I'm reading here from Karina Mariana. Against the tide, why Trump won back the heart of America. And just a couple of paragraphs here, because it's like, whoa. I mean, we all know it. It's all the reasons, but it's the way she writes it. Trump has finally returned to the White House, a rerun of 2016. But even more decisive, he has not only secured more than the necessary electoral votes, but also won the popular vote in both houses of Congress. This time, the American people chose to avoid risks, turning out in massive numbers to support the man most despised by the establishment. How could the crazy Trump win a second term? Well, by being the sanest option Americans had to choose from. When Biden came to power in 2020, CNN commentators congratulated themselves that the grown-ups were back in the room. But before long, Americans realized how big a scam those grown-ups were, and 4 years later, they simply turned their backs on them. The reasons are plain to see. Biden-Harris management generated inflation that have left prices 25% higher than 2019. Many impoverished citizens could not afford to vote for Harris. Trump gendered the hope for prosperity and nostalgia for the pre-pandemic economy of his last presidency, when the stock market soared and unemployment fell to historic lows. Under Joe Biden, Americans suffered. But the economy is not the only determining factor. In 4 years of Democratic foreign policy, the world resembles a volcano in permanent eruption. The Democrats were indolent, incompetent, and often complicit in the development of the worst international conflicts, the wars in Europe and the Middle East, the impending conflicts in Taiwan, the growth of the China-Russia alliance, and the botched exit from Afghanistan are just a handful of the examples. Today, the prospects of a World War III are a matter of daily concern. The other key factor has been the illegal border crossings, which reached the highest level on record, benefiting the spread of organized crime in a way that will be very difficult to combat in the future. The Democratic administration rolled out the red carpet for the worst narco mafias to set up shop in the richest country in the world. Rarely has a more damaging malpractice been seen. You understand why I like this, how she writes it? The collapse of President Woke. Once the promises Democrats employed in 2020 was to appear, one of the promises Democrats employed in 2020 was to appear normal, reliable, and solid in the face of a fickle pandemic-ravaged Trump. Joe Biden was portrayed as someone stable who counted on the reassurance of knowing and managing the pegs of the deep state. But the masquerade was soon revealed. This was a senile president who did not manage the deep state, but on contrary, was its puppet. Immediately, Biden began to govern as a parody of himself, and the deep state was quick to impose its agenda. The haste was obscene. Day one showed Biden signing a series of executive orders to promote the insane dogma of woke ideology, regulations to institutionalize the supremacist creeds of critical race theory and gender ideology. They hadn't even finished settling into the White House and were already allocating funds for race and gender-based anti-COVID policies. Biden became the world's first woke president, the most bigoted and irrational. His administration was a bastion of the hysterical turn of the radicalized elites that plagued the world in recent years. One of the most explosive issues for the left in this campaign was the increase in minority support for Trump, which grew in the preferences of the Hispanic and black vote. a factor that likely tipped his campaign towards victory. This has shaken the foundations of the Democratic Party and its prejudices about the minority vote, identity politics, as well as the dominant progressive identitarian ideology. Apparently, this is great here. This is it right here. Apparently, because we had talked about this last hour, the victimized collectives managed by the left prioritize the same issues as white voters the left so often disparages. The political promise of wokeism have begun to crumble, and no one is eager to see themselves as a structural victim in need of a paternalistic left to protect them. The overuse of condescension in this campaign has been counterproductive. The concerns of ordinary people, no matter their skin color, no matter their sexual preference, no matter their age, no matter their creed, do not fit with the concerns of the progressive elites. Instead, ordinary people are concerned about rising food, housing, and energy prices. Ordinary people are concerned about rising crime, about the impunity of criminals to do anything from squatting, raping, killing, stealing, and turning public space into a toilet and an open-air bordello. Under the Biden-Harris administration, the federal government lost control of the border, not just the border states. The U.S. has become a promised land for criminals and terrorists. Added to this cocktail, Biden's mind-boggling physical deterioration plunged the country into the spiral of bewilderment and outrage. Who was at the helm when it was evident that the president was no longer aware of his actions? The humiliation to which the Democratic Party subjected American citizens to was immense. The conditions for a Trump victory were shaped long before Biden dropped out of the race. Voters have had enough. But when it fell apart after the Trump-Biden debate, the Democratic Party insulted its voters again, this time by installing Kamala Harris as its nominee. Harris took Biden's place with the arrogance of the ignorant. She tried to get to the White House with good vibes, laughing about everything and anything and promising everything to everyone, however contradictory this might be, with insolvency and sentimentality perfectly stamped on her famous phrase, "What can be unburdened by what has been?" The coastal elites pretended to be in love with the candidate who claimed to be black, self-proclaimed Indian, self-perceived as a poor victim, racialized by the imperial system. No one contrasted the lies of the millionaire and privileged phony who was a political nullity incapable of winning a vote. And the media made matters worse by treating her with cotton wool, being so overwhelmingly biased that they may have contributed to her defeat. And then it continues to go on, but I just wanted to read those paragraphs because it was just beautiful. She goes into Russiagate and laptop and everything else and the weaponization of government.
Yeah.
It's like all across the board, Democrats on everything were a complete disaster. I've always said it, though, they lost because people saw through the BS.
Well, I think that's it. I think one of the things that has come about with after Elon Musk bought X is free speech. Also uncovering all of the rot that was inside the government that they used to, basically weaponize against people their authority through social media, including it's when you are lied to repeatedly, it's one thing. All right, that person, that group, whatever. These are lies. Okay, you know what to expect. When they tell you your eyes aren't seeing what you're looking at right now, on every front, the border's secure, inflation is transitory, inflation is good, crime is not on the rise, all of that boy is a girl. That's when people draw the line. You know, you want to lie and say, all right, political promises, whatever it might be. Well, we know that they're not going to live up to that. When you keep lying over and over about the reality that's playing out, this is worse than Baghdad Bob, because it's everything that people are experiencing in their lives every single day that are at a greatly disconcerting level. High crime makes you fear for your family's safety. An open border makes you fear for your family's safety. Inflation, not being able to afford what your kids, what your family needs, that makes you fear for the stability of your family. All of these things are greatly disconcerting, and I think people just looked at it and said, that's enough. Because another part of that is the weaponization. You know, you look at the Russian hoax, you look at everything they threw at Trump. And when more and more liberals and a few prominent liberals along the way opened their eyes and said, wow, they've been lying about all these things. And look at what they threw at him. These people aren't necessarily Trump fans, but they understand something you and I have been saying, and that is if they'll go this big on weaponization, they'll come after you. And now we know that is a fact because FBI agents sitting in a parking lot taking down license plate numbers is not a small thing just because parents want to issue a valid concern. And these are the things where a public looks at it and says, you as a group, as a collective, you've been acting this way, which tells us it is organized, which tells us it is a threat more and more, and we're going to be in your sights at some point. If they'll go after Trump, if they'll do this to parents, they're going to go after anybody. That means I'm next.
Well, we saw you had no outrage from the Democratic Party. They were in full agreement with the intimidation, the threats against young women who did not want men competing against them and in their locker rooms. And that's why we said the Democrats tried to say, oh, there's only a few people. No, this was if it's not important, then why did the Democrats go through the process of attempting to change Title IX?
Right.
If it doesn't mean anything, then what you're saying is women playing sports against women and women opportunities mean nothing.
Right. States are fighting this legally. I mean, this is the radical idea, the radical set of ideas here is being put into motion, and they're not done. But thankfully, more and more Americans are waking up, seeing what they're doing. My question and concern would be, is this going to continue? And if not, what happens?
866-90-RED-I.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on roadside inspections. Once a roadside inspection is completed, the officer will close it out, which involves the officer writing or typing up the report. The more the officer found during the inspection, the longer this will take. If violations were discovered, most officers, as a courtesy, will explain the violations to the driver. If there were any out-of-service violations, the officer will normally explain what must be done to get the out-of-service order lifted. Drivers need to be very attentive during this part of the inspection. The driver also needs to read and understand the complete inspection report. After receiving the inspection report, the driver has 24 hours to get the roadside inspection report to the motor carrier. If the driver will not be returning to a company facility within the next 24 hours, the driver needs to know to get it on the way to you via email, mail, or fax within 24 hours. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller & Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-I on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Wow. A lot of people want to know where that they can find that article. It's go to the website vaz.us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in English and Spanish. Vaz.us is a conservative Spanish language website, but they do have the English where you can hit either Spanish or English.
Yeah, in the top right corner,
Right.
choose English or Spanish, whichever.
Or if you just want to go to my X page at Gary Red Eye 1, it's right there. So,
And I also reposted that as well. So
at Eric Harley.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. So
Yeah.
on X. So yeah, I mean, it is a great article. I'm glad you.
Yeah.
As soon as I finished reading it, I said,
Yeah.
"Uh-oh."
Yeah.
I have a feeling this is such quality the way it was written that listeners are going to say, "Hey, where can we find it?"
Very well done.
30 seconds after Alan opens a door, listeners want to know where they can find it.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a great. Karina Mariana is the name of the woman who wrote the article. So
Yeah.
and I didn't read the whole thing, so I mean, there's probably another, I don't know, 5 or 6 paragraphs. So you might want to check it out. But very well written.
Yeah.
And actually humorous in a way. Some of it is. I don't know if it was intended to be humorous,
Right.
but for us it was. It was
Right.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
because it made such great points. Coming up next, the whole Supreme Court situation yesterday. It's not over. I mean,
No, it is.
hearing is today on that one, and this is where the $2 billion a district court was saying that the Trump had to pay to USAID had to pay $2 billion for services that were already done before
Right.
a certain date.
Right. Grants and contractors.
Right.
Right.
And Trump said, no, we get to, we're the ones, the district court doesn't get to make that decision. And the interesting thing is the Supreme Court didn't say they get to make the decision, but told them to clarify the decision, and they're going to hear it again. And that is what's objectionable, is that a district court is the one setting the policy for the executive branch.
Right. Yeah. And, in the decision yesterday, it came off as giving deference in terms of authority to the lower court. And it's like, well, hold on a second. No. Alito, I'm stunned. That's how he opened, on the dissent. And it's like, all right. And that's what should have been very clear. Well, the lower court doesn't have the authority here. But as Amy Howe at SCOTUSblog.com writes, this probably would, or very well could, get back to the Supreme Court in terms of asking the Trump administration, asking for them again, once this clarification at the lower court is done, to act. We'll expand more on this here in a minute after the break and break it down the best we can.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And I'm Gary McNamara along with Eric Harley. Welcome and good morning. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when and where you choose. So, yeah, getting back to the Supreme Court yesterday on the district court that said that the Trump administration needs to pay that $2 billion in grants and for work that had been done already. And there was an outcry saying the district judge doesn't have that authority to do that.
Right.
And by a 5-4 vote, it was unsigned from what I saw.
Right.
But we know that the dissent from Alito was just vicious.
Yeah. I'm stunned.
You don't see that often. I'm stunned. It doesn't make it's not over yet. They may not still be able to do it, but it's the fact that that authority, from everything that I know, and I had trouble dissecting this whole thing yesterday, going through the whole lead points of it, because what they said was you need to clarify this.
Yeah,
by saying they need to the district court needs to clarify what the Trump administration can do.
In fact, the quote is clarify what obligations the government must fulfill to ensure compliance. Well, that to me, again, is assigning authority. You're saying that the lower court has the authority to force compliance on the administration. And that's why I think Alito is stunned by this. I know it is why I'm stunned by this. There's a good chance this could, another emergency appeal could happen again soon after they issue the clarification. The judge, U.S. District Judge Amir Ali, needs to clarify. Well, okay. All right, fine. But based on the clarification, then the administration can go back to the Supreme Court and say, okay, now. And we'll see where that goes and how all that happens. There is a hearing today. Ali is expected to hold a hearing today on the aid group's motion for a preliminary injunction, which, if granted, would suspend the freeze on foreign assistance funding going forward. Again, that hearing is expected to happen today. This means this dispute, according to Amy Howe at SCOTUSblog.com, that this means that the dispute could return to SCOTUS as an emergency appeal again soon. We'll see.
Now, am I getting this right in the fact that what the I want to say the constructionists, conservatives, whatever, because it's I'll say conservatives because they're the where you saw the outrage come from, is that the only authority that the court might have is to put in a temporary restraining order so a full court could look at it. But as to a district court having the ability to tell without appeal the executive branch what to do, that's where it's out of line, because that would make sense to me.
Right. Yeah, we don't. It basically, if SCOTUS is saying, well, we got to get specifics as to what the directives to the government are from the court. So Ali needs to clarify, what those orders are to be compliant. And then, I don't know. I'm guessing here. And then the administration can come back and appeal. I don't know.
Because I look at it and say, well, the Supreme Court going back and saying clarify in itself, and it seemed to be where Margot Cleveland was going, that's even more of an outrage because you're saying it's the one district court judge to initiate policy alone that the federal government has to, the executive branch has to abide by without appeal to a larger court, that the only thing that they have, that the lawsuit can exist, which they go to the judge with, and they can do the temporary restraining order, but he can't make the decision himself.
Right.
Without appeal, and by them kicking it back to him and saying, well, clarify this for us, you are, in essence, saying, well, that one judge has the ability to dictate to the executive branch what they do with no appeal.
Right.
Because what they're saying is, what you've given us right now is unacceptable, but you would have the authority to do that. That's where the problem is, right?
It appears, again, if you take, part of what SCOTUS wrote here, clarify what obligations the government must fulfill to ensure compliance. Compliance?
Yeah,
Compliance assigns authority to the U.S. District Court.
right.
In this case, and they don't have that. Now, are you saying put it in those terms so that the administration can then know what they're, and the High Court, SCOTUS, we can decide based on what those obligations are, what obligations they're being told to meet. But again, all of this is for naught because the district court doesn't have that authority.
Exactly. That's.
I got a headache. It's maddening. It really is. And because if it is that, then write it that way.
Yeah. That was the thing that I looked at. I'm like, well, wait, they're almost saying that they can do it, and the Supreme Court simply telling the executive branch, oh, no, they have the authority to do it. We're not analyzing it.
Right.
But in a way, they are analyzing it because then they're asking them for a clarification.
Yeah, what the government must fulfill to ensure compliance.
But why would the Supreme Court do that? Why would they simply not say, no, you don't have the authority, or you have the authority to do it? Because they're saying, well, we need to approve part of it, or I do.
Well, I do have a question about contractors who have already done work. In terms of grants,
yes,
we can have I think that's a totally separate issue. But within that $2 billion are contractors who did work. Now, that means they had a government contract. Is the High Court, might we hear at some point, well, wait a minute, the government had a contract, these contractors did the work. The work has been done, that must be paid. The grants, maybe not, because that's a grant to do future work. Basically, when you get a grant to do whatever it might be, there is no contract. Contractors have done the work. I don't know. I'm just guessing here. But I could see something like that.
But and I thought about that too. The same thing. If the work's been done already, who has the authority to make that decision? Even if the work has been done, if the district court doesn't have a say in that,
right?
Then is it just a civil suit brought against the government for payment, which is outside the district court? That's what I don't know.
Yeah.
There's so many I don't knows in that.
Yeah.
But I definitely look at it and go, well, I don't think the district court judge alone has that authority to make that decision.
Right. No, again, that's what it all goes back to every time I, take my little brain and go through this. But the U.S. District Court doesn't have this authority.
And I'm getting a headache again over it, I think.
It's... If SCOTUS ultimately is saying, well, we've got to know specifically what we're deciding. Because, again, clarify what obligations. So we need to know what obligations we're deciding. Right?
Right.
And if that's what they're saying, it's about, we need to know, because it may not apply in a wide ruling. Well, all right, contractors who have done work and have a contract for that work need to eventually get paid. If that's decided, I could see that happening. I'm not saying I agree with it, that we should be paying these contractors through USAID and money should be spent the way it is.
No, but
through
once
USAID.
they're paid,
I'm just talking
I guess
once they've done the work and there's a contract in place as a contractor, not grants, because grants are different.
But I guess that would be my thing. Is that what's happening here? Is a group that filed the lawsuit, the group saying we didn't get paid and we want to get paid, and is there a separate process to go through that already exists that the court shouldn't be involved in? Is there an administrative way to go through that to get paid?
Yeah,
and I don't know. That's why
I don't know. Yeah, I know. Yeah,
trying to decipher that yesterday gave me a little bit of a headache.
Well, because the reason we're having to is all the activist judges that are out there thinking that they have control over this administration.
I do want to play this, and we'll probably over the next day play more audio cuts, but I do want to play this because I think this is great that Dr. Bettichera, who is looking to become the head of NIH, which is absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
Because you and I followed him from October of 2020 when he was part of the group of doctors that wrote the Great Barrington Declaration, saying everything they're doing is wrong.
Right.
And Fauci and the Biden administration attempted to destroy him. And he was right.
Yep.
Here's part of his testimony yesterday. Here we go.
I will establish a culture of respect for free speech in science and scientific dissent at the NIH. Over the last few years, top NIH officials oversaw a culture of cover-up, obfuscation, and a lack of tolerance for ideas that differed from theirs. Dissent is the very essence of science. I'll foster a culture where NIH leadership will actively encourage different perspectives and create an environment where scientists, including early career scientists and scientists that disagree with me, can express disagreement respectfully. I will establish.
There you go.
And I loved watching that yesterday.
So did I.
Because I just loved watching him have a voice. That was so, for me, satisfying, following that for so many years of how all that went down with the Great Barrington Declaration and all of that, and how they were carved out as pariahs, and they were shunned by the so-called medical community, the scientific community. And now we see, with this perspective that we have now with time and what we have learned over that time, and you and I knew then, but it took a long time for everybody else to learn what was actually going on, and that was a horrible injustice.
They tried to create the image that he was some type of rogue doctor.
Yeah, right.
And that was Fauci was behind that, as
right,
we
like
know.
he was some kind of a quack,
Yep.
that was, and it was clearly led by forces that wanted to keep another narrative going. I mean, that may sound like a Captain Obvious statement, but I mean, we know who those people were. Fauci was part of that. And my mind doesn't get how you didn't have a greater number of doctors standing up to that back then.
I know. Oh, well, they had a number of doctors. Remember the number of doctors that signed it, though?
Yeah, true.
He was, a ton of doctors signed
But
it.
I mean, even the idea of saying, well, wait a minute, I may not agree with the Great Barrington Declaration, and
right.
all that, but I think we should have the conversation.
Right, exactly. They didn't want the conversation.
No.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. Why? Our show ends an hour from now. Yes, it does.
For the day.
Yes, which would be 5 a.m. Central, 6
as far as we know.
6 a.m. Eastern time. And if you didn't get a chance to listen to the entire show, well, then you can go back, because after the show's over, we record the entire show, and then it becomes our podcast,
right,
which is on our Red Eye Radio app. And if you listen overnight and for some reason you can't get one of our great radio stations that carries us, we stream live all 5 hours.
All 5 hours every night.
Yeah. So with Dr. Bettichera, though, I'm so happy.
Yeah.
So it was so great to see him testifying yesterday. Over the next couple of days, we'll have more audio cuts of that, plus the sanctuary cities. There's just so much audio out there. But Bettichera, they tried
oh, man,
to destroy.
They just wanted
him completely.
His career. They wanted him done.
Yep.
No voice at all.
And he was right.
He was right.
They were right. The Great Barrington Declaration was right.
Yep.
On everything.
Mm-hmm.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.